Oh, it's a cute little shadow me face. No, but seriously, you can get the Shadow Me faces down below in the description on my Redbubble. I don't make any money on it, you just be supporting the channel. Welcome to part 2 of my story. If you're just now seeing this video and you haven't watched part 1, it'd probably be a good idea if you just started from part 1. But we're gonna get into my drug story now. I've got my computer up. Essentially, we'll be doing the same thing as we were in part 1. I'll be following along and maybe elaborating on things a little bit, just more clearly and stuff. But again, I'm excited to do this. I've been waiting to do this video for a really long time. So just a little recap real quick. Part 1 was me kind of telling y'all about my mental illnesses, what kind of caused me to get into my drug use, how it all started, why I even used in the first place. So that's why part 1 is so important. But now we're going to be starting where we left off in part 1 right here. It's going to be going into how I met this friend that kind of introduced me to the drug, and what happened right after graduating high school. So let's jump in. I had a friend that I was really close to. I had known him since 3rd grade. I had been hanging out with him. I had seen it just being used, I guess, a lot. I was giving this friend rides to help him do his thing and I guess make his money and stuff. And so I was around it a lot before I tried it. But when I was 18, maybe 17 years old, I tried crystal meth for the first time. Yeah, so like I said, I was probably 17 years old when I tried it the first time. I had a friend that had been using prior, that's been using for 15 years, I swear. He started at a young age, and he was the one that I was hanging out a lot with, even since 3rd grade. He was in and out of my life or whatever until eventually I graduated high school, met him, and he had been using for years already, and you know, I was helping him out like I said in the video. But a lot of people ask me how it actually legitimately happened my first time, and I was just hanging out at his house, and he was using. It was a normal thing for me to just see other people using because of the people I was hanging out around, but I wasn't using at that time. But at this particular time, I was at his house. It was just me and him, and he was using, and I was like, you know what, I'll just take a baby hit, just the after smoke, just you know, freaking if someone took a hit off a blunt and blew it in your face type of situation. And I did that, and I didn't feel anything, and I was like, fuck it, let me just take an actual hit. I did. I ended up cleaning his whole entire room and loving the feeling of it. And anyways, that's how it happened. So let's just jump back in. Okay, so let me backtrack a little bit. As far as drugs, I smoked my first cigarette when I was 16, and then I dabbled with weed and drinking and shit when I was a sophomore in high school. And that was just an occasional thing, you know. It wasn't I had to have it, you know. Not until I graduated and tried crystal meth that summer. That's something that I could not have. So I tried going to college for the first time. I was using, you know, at this point I couldn't really stop. I tried going to school for 2 weeks. I ended up dropping out because my addiction got the best of me. Pretty much ever since I graduated high school, I've had a really hard time with this addiction. I've been out of high school for 6 or 7 years now, probably almost 7 years, maybe. Let me just give you a rundown of the past 7 years. That first relapse, Like the first time I tried it, I got really bad. You know, I was running away from my parents' house numerous times. I got to a point to where I got so bad that I got so bad at the end of that first relapse that I ended up driving and parking right next to where my best friend that was sober was working, and I fell asleep in my car. And after he got off of work, he saw me in my car asleep. He comes and knocks on the door, and I roll down the window. I wake up and he's like, "Yo, you look bad." So he's like, "Do you want me to take you to get something to eat?" And I was like, "Sure." And so I get in his car, and we're driving, and I look out the window, and I was like, "Are we getting something to eat?" And he was like, "No, man, actually, I'm taking you to your parents' house." And I wanted to run, but I was so out of it. We pull up to the house, my parents are sitting outside. I get out, and I just look like shit. I probably weigh like 75, 80 pounds. And I stay home for like 2 weeks. Just eating, sleeping, trying to get better. And then I arranged this thing where I get picked up after 2 weeks, and I relapse again, and I start using again for another probably 2 weeks or a month. And then it got bad again, obviously, and so the trap house I was living at, it was bad, and I just like wanted to go for a walk one night, and I did, and I stumbled upon one of my other best friends' mom's house, where I was walking past her house. She was in her van. She was like, she got out of the van and was like, "Oh my God, Jacob, is that you?" And I was like, "Yeah." She wanted to take me to get something to eat, so I did. And I got in the car with her, and we drove to Whataburger. She fed me. She was like, "Do you need any groceries or anything? Can I get you?" And I was like, "Sure." But when I walked out of Whataburger, my dad was standing there. He was like, "Get in the truck." This was like my first spiritual thing that happened to me. I tried to run. I was not done using. I tried to run, but I couldn't. It was like my legs were stuck, and I ended up just like walking into the truck and pretty much passed out for like 3 days in the truck, and kind of just like woke up and came to the realization that I was in Pennsylvania. My dad had driven me all the way from Texas to Pennsylvania to stay with one of my best friends that was going to a school up there. And so I stayed there for a while. I didn't really get sober. It depends on who's watching this, who the viewer is. You know, if you're an addict or an alcoholic or just an average person, there's gonna be different interpretations about what I'm saying. And so for the addicts and alcoholics, at this point I didn't get sober yet. I was still drinking and smoking weed, which to normal people, you know, is understandable. That's a better alternative than meth, you know, that makes sense. But I was doing that. I stayed in Pennsylvania for like 3 months, came back. So the second time, I ended up relapsing again, started using a lot, and the second time was really bad. And you know, I was sort of a functioning addict. Like, I would still go to work using until it got to the point where I was using so much that I was just completely obliviated and just could not work anymore. And then at that point, I would be hanging out with that friend I told you all about when I graduated high school, and he knows the game like the back of his hand. So like, not only were we using, but we were like selling. So it's not just the drug that was addicting, it was the lifestyle, the things that I was having to do, the things that I had to go through, and I grew a strong relationship with this person, sober and while getting fucked up, and it's just... So between this codependent relationship that had been formed between my best friend that I graduated with here, you know, things got really bad the second time. We were freaking, I was away from home doing the whole living in trap houses and everything. We were codependent with each other because he knew the people, he knew how to get the drugs from the higher up people we were having to deal with, which was just crazy. Not anything I thought I was ever gonna have to deal with, like mafia type people like Mama and Poppy. We were having to deal with them. I don't want to go into much detail about that, but it ended up just getting really bad. And his codependency relationship towards me was I was the one with the car, I was the one being the taxi driver for the game essentially, and things just got really bad. We were in and out of trap houses until we started freaking dying pretty much. And you know, one day I went over to my parents' house to grab some of my shit to leave and like sell some stuff off that I can make some money with, and my dad freaking saw me, and I got in a car chase with my dad on the highway. He tried to chase me down, but I just like was driving around in circles. He eventually lost me during this long second time of relapsing. Each relapse lasts probably like 8 months. At least the first and second one were like long, where I would just be gone from home, not talk to any of my close friends that were sober or anything, and just be gone, not knowing, everyone maybe thinking I was dying or something stupid was happening out there, like while trying to fucking be out in the game and shit. It got bad really quickly. I had nowhere to stay. I walked around Sherman for 3 days. The Starbucks right there. I was literally editing this video in there and came across this scene and wanted to give a little bit more filler to it. I was walking around my hometown for 3 days because my car pretty much shut down. It shut down at this random gas station with another person I was using with, not my best friend, but another different person. And this guy is actually super important to this story because he saved me on multiple occasions. But within the 3 days, I went back over to Mama and Poppy's house after me and my best friend had an altercation. We were mad at each other and we didn't want anything to do with each other. I go back to Mama and Poppy's house to see if there were like any drugs laying around, and I was gonna take them. And I got there, and there's like this shed in the backyard where me and my best friend were staying. And I get there, and he's not in there, but all of our stuff is back there, like all of our drugs and stuff. And anyways, I go into the shed, I sneak into the shed, and I grab all of the stuff, and I start running away. And then my best friend comes out of the front side of the house, sees me. He comes running after me, and he pretty much tackles me to the ground, and we start wrestling and shit, and he rips the backpack off of me. And at this point, I just threw my Dr. Pepper all over him and was like, it's not even worth it. But going back to the friend that I was using with, that when my car shut down, that guy pretty much saved me on a couple of occasions, because after that altercation with me and my best friend went to Mama and Poppy and told them what had happened, that I was trying to take everything, even though I was pretty much the one with the money and it was mine anyways. But my best friend had turned Mama and Poppy against me, and so they got mad at me, and pretty much half the game in my hometown was looking for me. And this guy that I was with, that I was using with, saved me because he lived in a tent in someone's random backyard, and he let me hide out in that tent for a really long time. And also when my car shut down at that random gas station, I had a head unit and some other expensive stuff in there, and he held it in a bag for me while I was out walking around for 3 days. But anyways, I'm about to say that I end up going to my grandma's house, and when she opened the door, she didn't even recognize me. She let me live with her until my birthday. And for my 19th or 20th birthday present, I got to go and live back with my mom and dad. Yeah, and by the time I got back to my parents' house, my car was still at that gas station, and my dad decided to go and pick up my car from the gas station, and all of a sudden this random guy comes out of nowhere up to my dad and hands him this black bag of stuff and says, this is your son's stuff. Like, I was just holding on to it. So I haven't talked to that guy since then, but if you're watching this, thank you for being a decent guy. You know, a lot of us addicts and alcoholics, a lot of people get a bad taste in their mouth about us, like that we're just like the scum of the earth and don't want to do anything with our lives. But we're just like any other person. We're just struggling and we're trying to make it, and or we're just going through things. That pretty much sums up Relapse 2 and Part 2. I'd like to end it here because this video is already getting a little long. This is going to end up being a lot more parts than I thought. You know, it's 8 years worth of information. In this video, I had been going through it for 6 or 7 years. So on Part 3, we'll get into Relapse 3, I guess, and just continue the process. So I love y'all. Make sure if y'all are in recovery to, you know, use this story as an eye-opener. You know, and in a lot of my other videos, I say that I just like to explain my experiences in the hopes that other people can learn from it, and or not repeat what I've done in my life. So with that said, I love y'all, and be looking out for Part 3. See ya.